Hello and welcome to another episode of But Have You Heard About? I'm your host, Courtney. Today I'm joined by one of my super awesome CrossFit friends, Mackenzie.
Hey, y'all.
So Mackenzie has two things that she's super passionate about. One is Disney and one is hockey. And while I definitely love hockey, I am infatuated by Disney because I grew up as a huge Disney fan. I know that I have a VHS tape still somewhere. I think my mom has it, of Little Mermaid. And there's a part where it skips really bad when she's singing like Part of Your World and she goes on the rocks, because I would just rewind it constantly and sing that and like reenact it because I'm a child. I'm a child of the 90s. I love Disney movies. But instead of just talking about Disney movies, I want to talk about this wonderful water park that they used to have, River Country, because a lot of people know about it, but also a whole bunch of people have no idea about it. And Disney, we'll get into it, but Disney basically left it sitting for almost 20 years before they kind of realized what they wanted to do with it when they closed it in 2001. So, backstory on River Country. Back in 1973, because we all just know facts off the top of our head, there was a gas shortage and Disney had been open for a while. But most people who went to Disney back in the 70s would carpool there, drive their cars. And with a gas shortage, you're like, well, you want to get the most bang for your buck. Disney thought, you know what we should do? We should have a water park. We're in Florida. Makes sense. So starting in 1973 to 1975, they built this wonderful water park called River Country. And it's off of Bay Lake, right? Yeah, that's the lake over in Disney. Bay Lake. Sounds right. Yeah.
Like,
I was like, I think I've only been to Disney like once and a half. Well, let's call it that. So, and they basically themed it off of Mark Twain's Huckleberry Finn. And there's a swimming hole. They literally created it to make it look like it kind of fed off Bay Lake. But at the same time, there was almost a wall that was like a few inches higher. So if the lake was ever too high, it would never pull over or fill over into the swimming hole itself. They had rides. It was next to Fort Wilderness and a very outdoorsy theme. It had like a capacity of like 4,500. It opened in 1975, was literally at capacity like every day. And the admission price was $4, which in today's terminology is like $17, which is like 2 chicken nugget meals at McDonald's. But paying that compared to what you would do over to go to like Magic Kingdom, it is a bargain price. And it being next to Fort Wilderness, which is where you can like have the campgrounds, it was a wonderful addition. Did you ever get to go to River Country?
I did not. I have not, but I have been to several of the other water parks in the area, which I think contributed to the downfall of River Country itself.
Basically, a competitor back in like the early 90s created their own water park, which was way faster, had a huge capacity. And Disney was like, hey, they're taking people from us. And we also have, SeaWorld was coming in and encroaching just a smidge bit. And you also had Universal Studios. And so Disney's like, we got to amp up. And that was during Michael Eisner's time. And he was very competitive. Like he was kind of the one who started a lot of stuff, I would say, for Disney that made it what it is today, where literally Disney owns everybody. So, all the good stuff. But they created, what is the other, do you know the water park's name that they currently have?
Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon. I think Blizzard Beach was, or maybe it was Typhoon Lagoon was first, but then the other one followed like several years after.
Yeah. And they had just more exciting rides. And if you've ever seen footage of River Country, it was made in the 70s and it's a product of its time. Like we would never make those rides today. So they're not like the worst rides in the world, but they're like safety wise. Little helicopter parents would be like, oh, no, you don't get to go down that. You don't get to do that. But it was very much like, you pay X amount of money to go to these other attractions over here at Disney. But if you want to like, a little bit more bang for your buck, you would have to go first thing in the morning. So you could be a part of like that capacity hit for River Country, since they would literally hit capacity of like 4,500 or so people a day that it was open. And that to me just shows like, people want more affordable things at Disney, but at the same time, you want to also do everything at Disney. Closed in 2001. Like they didn't reopen for the 2002 season. Disney spokespeople were like, if there's a big enough demand, we'll reopen it. And I guess that never happened because otherwise we would know about River Country. And there would be they had plans to make this whole envision to make it bigger, better, blah, blah, blah. But they left it sitting and you could go and look at these like abandoned photos and it's so crazy looking. And there's all these different theories of why they closed it. And it took them years before they finally filled up the man-made swimming hole Well, they did it during the summer where Zika virus was crazy and people were concerned about the mosquitoes. And they're like, well, we have water just sitting here. We should probably not have water just sitting because that's where mosquitoes casually come from. Coming from Texas, never want standing water around because mosquitoes are the devil. They like slowly but surely took it away. And now they are building a Disney vacation resort. Is that what it's called? Disney Vacation?
Is Disney Vacation Club.
Ooh, so fancy. And it's called Reflections. And I think that it's probably going to have a little bit of homage to River Country, or at least that's what I'm hoping, just because some of that stuff looks so cool. And if you go and watch people that have snuck into the park or they peek behind the things, and you can see, and like they had stuff that was super run down, looked horrible, like the fake rocks they made by hand look so cool. Because you have these Imagineers that are like, I'm going to make rocks. Because instead of bringing rocks in or whatever, they're like using like little tools and they're like, oh, here's a rock. I find that really cool because I'm not creative in that sense. This is my creativity talking. And so like one of the reasons or a couple thought processes for why it was closed, one of them is that there was a brain-eating amoeba that was found in water. And there was one child who did actually get it in like 1980 from going to River Country and passed away because literally there's only ever been 150 cases in the US. So it's not like a huge priority in finding a cure, which I understand is horrible, but also reality, while that's one of the reasons that some people think that it was closed, more likely had to do with 9/11. Not that 9/11 was directly responsible all by itself. Like that's not exactly why River Country closed. But after 9/11, you had a lot of people not traveling and they weren't spending as much money. And so to upkeep that park, and they would also had these ideas to make it bigger and better, there was no reason to do that if you're not seeing the influx of people coming to the park. I have not been to a theme park. I've not been to a Disney theme park since I was in 4th grade. It's been a while. I remember the Figment ride. That was my favorite ride. But like, I think looking at it like from a perspective, and we had talked a little bit about this earlier with the resources and just, they had resources just sitting there. You could have added more. I don't know. Like I look at it from like a financial standpoint, you're letting something sit versus figuring out what you want to do with it to either A, earn money or B, sell it, you know?
I think part of it is that if you look at 2001 and like the years following that, when they declared in 2000, I think they said 2005 was when they declared that they were never going to reopen it again. Between that time, not only, was there a big change in travel and travel restrictions, but Disney started opening more of these DVC resorts that they're actually going to build on that site in the future. I think they had like 2 or 3 new resorts open between when they closed River Country and when they declared that it was never going to be open again. And then adding on top of that, the 2 water parks that have a much higher capacity and like Disney transportation and all of the infrastructure that goes into like how they move the people on the property around. I think that they saw River Country as essentially a money pit versus, something to earn them money with the limited capacity that they had and the inability to really build up the area and add more to it. Because in 2001, when they were like, oh, we're not going to reopen for, after they do their refurbishments, just before that, like right across the way from that was Discovery Island, which was like supposed to be this tropical paradise and stuff like that. Like they had closed that just like 2 or 3 years before they decided that they were no longer going to refurb, River Country. And so I wonder how all of those things played into why these places closed. And like, was it because they opened Animal Kingdom? Was it because they were more happy with, the resorts that they were building? I don't know. It just seems like they had an opportunity. And then when they realized that more cash could be made somewhere else, they let this piece of Disney history, and really it's like water park history, just go to the wayside, which is a little upsetting as a Disney fan, I think.
Yeah. And that's why I'm hoping that with that new DVC, that resort, that they're going to at least take some of the stuff. Like they have like a huge water tank, I think is what I saw, that looked really cool. And I'm like, well, maybe they'll move it into and just kind of put different stuff and kind of play off that theme. Because I mean, in theme park history, it's literally like the first themed water park that was in the US, at least, if not the world, especially in Florida. And it's just really sad that instead of maybe incorporating it into something else, or like letting it be a part of another park, to just completely get rid of it. It is sad because I think it's such a product of its time. And I'm a nostalgic person. even though I didn't get to go. And like, I technically I would have been the right age to go, but I'm not a water park person. I just like to view things though. But I thoroughly enjoyed like watching the videos of people. Gerald Ford's eldest daughter got to go down like the first slide when it opened. And I'm like, that's really cool and really cute. And the fact that it opened in the 70s, I'm sad that it's no longer there. But the fact that it took like 20 years from when they closed it to when they finally said, hey, these are our plans of what we're going to do with this land. I don't remember what exact year it was, but they had Mickey's Backyard Barbecue or Picnic.
Yeah, I think they still have that at Wilderness Lodge in the campground area specifically, but I haven't personally partaken in that, but I'm pretty sure I stayed at Wilderness Lodge like 2 or 3 years ago. And I remember hearing or seeing something about that in like one of the little pamphlets that you can find in your room.
Nice. So what I saw is that like they took like part of that picnic area actually has parts of river country. And so so it looks like you're supposed to be there. And then there's this huge wall. And on the other side of the wall is literally like the swimming hole that you could see. Like you could peek over, like if you were like, 7.5 feet tall, you could look over and you could be like, oh, that looks like nature has finally come and take its place back. Like Poison Ivy's over here. She's like, I'm going to take this over. I don't care that you're Marvel and I'm DC. I'm going to let the plants live. And it really does look like nature, this man-made nature attraction now is literally controlled by nature in a sense. And nature has come. And I'm like, this is what it should really have looked like as opposed to these beautiful blue lakes and things. But I'm fascinated with like abandoned things in general, not because like I want to go see them because my ass would get caught and I would go to jail. But I thoroughly enjoy just kind of seeing how Mother Nature, in a sense, comes and takes it over. And the fact that Disney let that happen and so many people were able to peer around and to see into it during those years, especially when they made the Mickey's Picnic Barbecue area. I'm drawing a blank on exactly what it's called, but we're just going to call it the picnic area with Mickey Mouse. And the fact that people could peer around a thing and see it. But I believe 2022 is when it's supposed to open the new the Disney Vacation Club resort. And it's a luxury resort. And I was like, oh, I like some of the drawings for it had Pocahontas. And I was like, hell yeah, Pocahontas. So that made me excited because as a Disney kid, Pocahontas was like one of the last movies I think I saw in theater before I was like, I'm too old for Disney. You're never too old for Disney, but like middle school, you're too old for Disney. And then you get to high school and you're like, yeah, let's go be a child again. I don't want to be 18.
Yeah, let's watch Frozen.
Oh my gosh, Frozen. Watched Frozen 2 more times than Frozen.
God, I love that 80s rock ballad.
Oh my God, that's my favorite part. I died. Like I hosted the movie at the Alamo Draft House when they were still hosting movies and doing parties. And I got to do like 3 or 4 showings. And I dressed up as Olaf every time. And it was the most fun. And I knew all the words to the songs by the time that weekend was over. I'm like, you guys want me to recite it? I can just do this on the fly. Welcome to Courtney's Life. Something else we had talked a little bit about before we started recording was that we've both seen what I consider my favorite documentary of 2020, which is Class Action Park, based off of Action Park out in Jersey. If you're from Jersey, you know about Action Park because especially if you're anywhere near my age or older, like 30s, 40s, 50s, you might have even worked there. And it's such a Jersey thing. But you had talked about like the rides themselves looked like rides that they had at Disney. But instead of having, lifeguards and being safe, it's literally like, go do your own thing, have fun. If you get hurt, good for you. Good job. And first off, it's on HBO Max. If you have HBO Max, totally watch it. It's narrated by John Hodgman. He has a wonderful narrating voice. But the rides, they do look like river country rides, but on steroids. Like what you would say, like if river country is adult version. And then if you let a child say, I want to make this faster and I want to like have more fun without safety precautions, then you literally got Action Park.
Oh yeah, like I would view like Disney as like a Wegmans or a Publix type grocery store, and Action Park is more like Kmart or Piggly Wiggly. Like I hate to give that analogy, but it's so true. Like it just seemed, how can I make the most amount of money using the least amount of money, and had no regard for like personal safety of the visitors or even staff, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But there were just so many rides that seemed to have taken a life of their own that were based off of Disney rides. If you've just like watched some old footage of, guests who were at River Country, and when you watch Class Action Park, like you can just tell that like there are very similar attractions for way less price.
Yes.
And also way less safety.
Yes. If you live like in the Northeast and you have that like jaded personality, like very much so you're Bruce Springsteen, you're very like hard jaded, you're a New Yorker, you're like, I'm from New York City. That's my Yankee accent. My husband would be very unimpressed by it. But you're like, yeah, you can't talk to me. I'm not a baby. And people who'd go to that park, that's how they would be treated. So you had to go with like the toughest of tough skin and be cool with the fact that you may break a bone. And the thing is that if you sued them, you were never going to get money. Like, at least if you sue Disney and bad things happen at Disney, they take care of you, I believe, from what I've read. But I look at Disney and Florida. First off, Florida is its own special land. But if you're just going to Disney, it's not really Florida. It's like,
it's Disney.
It doesn't count. Like, you literally go to the airport and Disney's like, whoa, 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 we'll take care of you. You don't need to see this Florida. You don't need to see Floridians, Florida man and the Gators. No, we got you. But it's very much like people from the Midwest. They're like, oh, I want to go have fun. And they'll go to Florida and be happy. But I was like, you put them in Action Park. I'm like, oh, they would get trampled over and they would have a horrible time. And they'd be like, oh, that's not safe. We're from the heartland. How could you? How dare you tell me that there is no, like there's no like pedals or anything to like stop. You just kind of go until you don't go anymore.
Yeah.
And they like let people get super drunk before they would go and race cars. That boggled my mind because I was like,
well, what killed me is that they were able to, the staff, like the teenagers who were staff at Action Park were able to release the safety setting so they could go over 60 miles per hour. And one of them even took it on the freeway.
Yeah.
Like,
you can look even more into Action Park and like the shenanigans that they did. Like literally they had one adult and everyone else was a teenager. And the one adult acted like a teenager. And then your owner did not care as long as it got money. Again, that's a very like you're next to New York, Wall Street type of thing where you're like, just give me my money. I don't care what happens to you. I thoroughly enjoyed Action Park and I'm like, I really wish I could go there. But obviously that one's not around either. So at least Disney outlasted that, I guess.
Well, I just think it's funny that one, that happened, but two, in regards to River Country, you can see hints of River Country, I think, in the parks today, or at least on property. Like I saw on one video of footage is that they used to have like these motorboats, which Action Park did copy as well, but you can still do those things around Bay Lake or around the lagoon at Disney Springs, or like you had mentioned the water tower tank. Well, there is one of those at Wilderness Lodge that feeds into like a pool, or I can't remember exactly, but I know there's one over by the pools, not that same exact one, but it's just like you see these little tidbits of what River Country had in, the park today. And Beach Club, which is a DVC resort as well, has the only sand bottom pool on property. And I feel like that is also like an ode to River Country in a sense.
Yeah, because it was sand. Like you would literally walk up and it's sand and your feet would not get the blisters like it would over at Action Park because it was all asphalt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. That just like growing up in the South in the summer, walking around without shoes on, like I am perpetually scarred for life as a child after hurting my feet multiple times in Texas. I'm like, nope, I'm good. Never don't go outside without shoes on. Yeah, like you could see like any part of Disney that has like ever goes through revamping, it almost feels like they take some of those things and add them to either new parts. And while they didn't necessarily slowly but surely demolish or get rid of River Country before they put it in other places, but like the design of River Country itself, because so few people could technically go a day compared to other parts of the park, they could take away from it and people wouldn't really notice unless you've been so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really cool thing that the Imagineers did. I also like that they have their own special name. They're not just engineers, they're Imagineers. And I think I'm just jealous that they have a fancy title.
Oh, I'm jealous of their capability or their talent. Like you can have the fancy title, you deserve it. But like, I wish I had half the talent that some of these Imagineers have to take this idea or this sketch and turn it into the great things that Disney has made and continues to make across property and intellectual property that they have.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we can literally sit here and talk about just if you look at the ideas that came out of River Country, it was huge for its time. Like I'm over here talking about like they handmade these rocks. I think it was fiberglass that they used for the slides was new. Like that's not normally what people would use for like a water slide. You had to jump off into a pool and somehow it was safe. Like there wasn't going to be anybody underneath you or whatever. And they had like a lazy river-esque type of thing. And it was safe, but also they created this whole thing. And I just like for the 70s, that boggles my mind. I'm like, we literally had just gone to the moon and you're over here making this awesome looking theme park that I still would want to go to now. Well, if I liked water parks, but it's up there. Like it could still be used today and still be fancy and awesome.
Yeah, definitely the ideas that they had at the time were like pioneering. And there's still things that you see heavily in water parks today. Like when you go to big water parks, like the slides are all fiberglass, which is a testament to the groundbreaking work that they did. And the idea that you have lazy rivers at almost every single water park known to man. And then, the drop offs and everything like that. I just think it's truly a marvel at like what they did and like what they created are like monumental things in every water park that you see today.
Yeah. Yeah. They literally set the standard for future water parks. And I mean, Disney basically has set the standard for all theme parks, if you think about it. Because before you had Disney, you could think of, okay, you had traveling carnivals. And there's not really a theme to them. You just had some that you may die on because maybe they didn't assemble it correctly when they got to the new town, whatever may happen. But you have Disney who comes out and they're like, okay, we're going to have like a theme. It's going to be based around, our characters, our stories. And then later you have like the Warner Brothers version of it where you have Looney Tunes and you have Six Flags. I mean, I just always called it Astroworld until I moved to San Antonio. I was like, why would you call it Six Flags? It's Astroworld. And now there's no Astroworld. So womp womp. And it's one of those things that like people have constantly tried to copy and replicate like the great parts of Disney. And I think that's why I'm so fascinated with River Country is because I'm like, they let it go away and it was such a great thing. Anyways, if you've seen like the old photos, literally the fiberglass is still there and it still works. Like you could slide down it. I wouldn't slide down into like the water that hasn't been filtrated in a while, but you could technically.
Yeah, it just blows my mind because now that we know that they are going to build a new resort on this property where River Country is, it just blows my mind because like how much money is it going to cost to remove all of that versus if you had just said, okay, it's going away in 2001 and taken it all when it was easy, when it was clean, when I'm sure the bolts weren't quite so rusted as they are now. Like think about the manpower and the money that it's going to cost to remove it and then fill it in again because nature could have been filling it in the past like 19 or 20 years right now. And it's just mind blowing. Like you said, how, they just let this go. And it's I feel like very atypical of Disney to just like let something go.
Yeah.
But yet they did it with Discovery Island as well. Like if you've seen videos of people who have stayed on or illegally crept onto Discovery Island, and by crept, I mean taken some kind of ramp because it's in the middle of a body of water, which I don't know if you knew this, but like I think last year someone stayed on Discovery Island for like 3 days before the Disney or the police found out.
What?
I don't know if he was like a homeless person or what, but like for 3 days, someone had been hiding on Disney property on like Discovery Island. And like, they just like, he's there chilling.
But that would be like a perfect place to quarantine. You know what I'm saying? Like if this was during quarantine times, you'd be like, I'm on an island that nobody knows about. Like we know about it, but you're not supposed to be here, but I'm going to stay here. But unless it was like before that, then like, 3 days. That's actually that's interesting. I wonder how long people can stay in abandoned places before people realize that there's someone there and they should take care of it.
Well, I guess my only concern with Discovery Island is that it housed animals. And like, I'm sure that they, removed those animals. But when you see like cages for boa constrictors, that just like raises the hair on my back of my neck a little bit, being, I'm not so sure I want to be here.
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest. I don't know much about Discovery Island. I know that it's there and people like mention it. I didn't know that it had animals, and that makes sense that, you have Animal Kingdom now, which is way more. Yeah. That would just make me feel like you're going to go into Jurassic Park and you don't know what's around the next bend. Because what if they left in a snake egg and it like hatched on its own? It became like a mutant snake where it's even more powerful because it wasn't raised by regular snakes. You don't know. It could be horrible.
All the crocodiles or alligators. I'm pretty sure they're crocodiles in Florida, but like think about all the gators that already infest Bay Lake. And then you've got this uninhabited island that, used to be infested with humans and now is no longer. that just leaves for the animal kingdom to like take over and, you know, start a whole new process, just like you were saying with Jurassic Park, like only Crocodile Park, I guess.
Croc Park, Gator Park, Gatorland, Croc Park. Gators scare me. So I remember growing up, my lovely gator stories. Anytime it would flood, I lived like right outside Houston on the water. Anytime it would flood, we would get crocodiles or gators. I think they were gators that would just show up in our neighborhood. Like we lived in a normal neighborhood, and it wouldn't be like 20 feet long. It would be like 6-foot long gator chilling in somebody's yard. And the dog catcher, because we weren't part of Houston proper. So like we had like our own dog catcher. He'd come by and he'd just be like, I don't know what to do. So then like the old men that are like in their 50s are like, I'm gonna wrestle this gator.
Typical Texan.
It's a very Texan. We had one of my neighbors was from Louisiana. They were the one who had no problem getting on top of the gator as long as the gator's eyes were closed with a cloth. And I was like, okay. Like as a child, I was like, that's so cool. And I had to stay in the house. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh my God, I would be paranoid. I would be like, I'm driving, I'm leaving, gone. And we also had a neighborhood peacocks. Like it was such a weird, like I lived in a city, but people were weird and had animals. I don't know. Anyways, gators scare the living hell. Like people that are like, I'm going to keep it as a pet. And I'm like, are you? Like, yeah, now I think about this, that person that like lasted 3 days, like what were they doing? Were they a gator man? Like they were croc man. And they're like secretly can communicate with the crocodiles. And they're like, rah, 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 however crocodiles speak, rah, 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 rah. Because yeah, anytime I go to like zoos and stuff, the reptile house is literally like the last on my list next to penguins, because penguins terrify me. But that's because they're penguins and they're creepy.
But they're so cute.
I mean, yeah, they're cute, but their beaks can break human bones. And every year they like encroach like another 6 inches in their hibernation patterns in South America. And I don't know how many years I have left until they're going to be in Texas. Like,
I think your fellow Texans will keep you safe.
Also, like, I'm pretty sure I'm like petrified of penguins because like there was a slide when I used to live like as like a toddler in Kansas City, and it was inside a penguin. And I think that's where like started my penguin fear. Anyways, this is like way off topic, but I don't really care. It's fine. It's a podcast. It's fun times. So river country, I'm sad it's going away, or like that it's officially gone. But I am kind of excited and hopeful that in like the DVC reflections that whenever it opens 2022, maybe 2023, just because they might have to take more precautions with COVID to get it open. I do hope that they kind of, give a nod back to river country, whether they have like some of the old props that were there. I mean, even renaming or naming some of the stuff in the hotel itself after, because they had like a picnic area. I can't remember what it was called, but like you could either dine there or you could order food there, or you could bring your own food in to the park, which I thought was really cool.
Well, I think that, since it will be another DVC resort and you already have one DVC resort beach club that has the sand bottom pool and it has a lazy river, like I think those are all attractive things to guests, not just DVC members, because other people can stay at DVC properties. Like those are all valuable qualities of that resort that I think would do great at this resort, and it would give that nod, and they could name it the same name that they named back when it was at River Country, or that they could use the same signs or like make new signs, but a similar manner in which the ones at River Country had. But I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of opportunities here that they have, but I hope they do it justice. Like I would hate for them to build this property here and then not give, the original IP the justice that it's due. So I have high hopes, but
me too. I mean, see. I feel like Disney does do a good job most of the time when it comes to like acknowledging things like from the past, just because you have such, Disney fanatics. I mean, like I saw so many people up in arms on the Twitter and the Facebook for people that live in California that no longer get to have like that annual pass. And I was like, oh, we real mad. I was like, I did not know. This was the straw that will break the camel's back for a lot of people in California, that they can't just go to Disney. Like they can't go to Disneyland every day. Yeah. And I get it. But at the same time, like that's supposed to be like a huge draw for outsiders. And if the park is constantly full because, locals are there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I could agree with that. Like I went to Disneyland back in, I think it was 2015 or 2016. And it was overwhelming by the amount of people that were there. And it was a weekday. And the only thing I can think of that I can attribute it to is locals, because who else goes to California? No offense to Californians. I just don't think there's that much to write home about California, but
especially
it was just crazy.
Anaheim. It's Anaheim.
Yeah. There's hockey and that's it. Like hockey and Disney.
They got that's where the Angels are, right?
I thought they were in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Angels.
But like they're Los Angeles, but it's not Los Angeles. I don't know. Look, I hate baseball. I'm putting that out there. Baseball is my least favorite sport. And I will talk smack about how silly baseball is. Yeah, like Disneyland, like the whole idea, like I know that we went to Disney World when I was younger because it was cheaper to go to Florida than California. It was cheaper to stay there just because it's so expensive to stay in California for anything. And there was like, I think more offered at the time at Disney World than Disneyland, which I thought was interesting.
There's just so much more to do. You have so many more parks. I mean, you have 2 water parks, at least now you have 2 water parks. You have Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Hollywood Studios. And then on top of that, you have Universal, you have SeaWorld, you have Legoland, you have Busch Gardens. Like, why would you choose to go to California over Florida?
Yeah. I mean, so the only thing is that if you are not used to the heat, California is probably better for you than Florida. But that's the thing, is that coming to somebody from Texas, I'm like, I'll go to Florida in July. This ain't nothing. It's just as humid as what I grew up with. And that's fine. But that's like what always has like boggled my mind is how many people will like stay out in the heat when it is like 106 with humidity and there's a hurricane coming. And they're like, oh, no, we got our tickets to Disney. We're going today.
Oh, yeah.
I have a former coworker who would literally stay at a DVC resort anytime a hurricane would come because they always will serve food and they'll take care of you. So if your power goes out, they have generators. You don't have to worry about it. And I think that is, that must be a plus side to living in Florida. At least you know where you to go if there's a hurricane.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it was super cheap too. The last time that they had a major hurricane come through. And like they take all the normal precautions that, you know, anyone else probably does. But Disney just has the institutional history of great customer service that you just can't find at other places. And I think that that's what a lot of people were shocked about with River Country closing. And then hopefully now that they're building that Reflections, it's just another testament of Disney showing their customer service and their history and their ability to, you know, rope in things from the past and provide that great customer experience that you don't really find at other places.
I think that's I think that's a great kind of like note to maybe end on because Disney really does have the best customer service. Like they hide any nasty stuff that may happen at their park. Like if somebody throws up, it's really gone in like 2 seconds. It boggles my mind at how proficient Disney is. And between Disney and Chick-fil-A, I'm like, look, if they had been in charge of like the vaccine stuff or like sending out information, I would have felt a little bit better. You know, like Donald Duck's over here telling me I need to get the vaccine. This is what's in it with the Donald Duck voice. Like that's what I need in life.
Hey, I'm just saying that if you have a place where customers are willing to eat off your trash cans, that's the place I want to be.
Yeah, a lot of people would. And the precautions that they take in general, because they also know that if, you know, bad things happen at their park, unlike what happened at like Action Park, they know that people will not come. And they're repeat customers, not just because you love Disney, but because you had such a great time. You made these memories. You want to remake those memories again. Like I have a lot of friends who don't have kids. They'll go to Disney. They don't care. They're like, I'm in my 30s. I'm not going hang out at Disney. If we didn't have this lovely pandemic, my husband and I were supposed to go to Disney World for the first time for him. And we were going to go do all the stuff in 2021. Obviously, here I am sitting at home.
I actually have a trip planned for July, so we'll see how it goes. But we'll see.
You'll have to let me know if you see any of the stuff being built for Reflection. But
see, I'm curious though, because I mean, even as a DVC member, we get notices about stuff. And I think that they have said that they're halting construction just because of the pandemic. They were shut down for 6 or 9 months, just like everybody else was. So they had a lot of projects already in place before they decided to start Reflections. And so I'm just hoping that, you know, once they get back to a more normal travel pattern or travel capacity, that it comes back online very quickly and not, you know, brushed off to the side to wait a little bit longer. But
yeah. So I'm hoping that they do look back, and I like the customer service aspect because I really do think that Disney will do a good job. I think they've done a better job probably in the past 10 years than they probably did in the early 2000s when it came to acknowledging their past, because they were growing exponentially in the late 90s to the early 2000s and also trying to compete with everybody around them.
Mm-hmm.
With that, is there anything else you would like to add, Mackenzie?
Nope. Just looking forward to my next Disney trip.
All right. Well, Mackenzie, again, really excited that you were here. We'll have to have you come back, talk either hockey, some more Disney, because Disney has so many different facets to cover. I mean, I did Disney trivia a couple years ago, and trying to prepare for that quiz was crazy. Super excited that you were here. Hopefully come back and join us again. Again, my name's Courtney, and this has been But Have You Heard About? And we hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.